Hello, friends. Always happens. I start speaking and my voice goes out.
We're just rolling. Okay.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the homestead and another episode of the Urban Homesteading channel with Professor DIY, Mrs. DIY, and of course Elpida. So today we're going to switch gears a little bit, and in true form for us, we're going to use scrap wood and try to build some wall art for you. Art that will cost you a lot of money to buy, but again, you can build it with scrap from your garage, right? So stick around. As always, we're going to show you every step of the way, and we're going to give you tips and tricks. But can you make art from scrap, Elpida? That's the real question.
I think you can.
Well, here we are from the future, and this is our scrap art, right?
Mm-hmm.
One in painting form and the other in free form. I don't know what we're going to call it. Let me have that for a moment.
Looks good.
Pretty cool. So last time we used the saw, it stalled on us, and I believe it's because this blade is old. We've used it since we bought the saw. So what we're going to do now is we're going to change the blade. Changing a blade is a great opportunity to capture anything that has fell down the chute of your
Down there.
nice. So this is the desired thinness we want, or thickness we want for our wood, and we don't have any scrap that is this thickness. So like we did in our last project, we're going to resaw pieces to be this dimension, right?
Right.
So we're going to go to our scrap pile, find pieces that we like, and we're going to resaw them until we have all the pieces we need for this first piece. Resawing allows you the opportunity not to only use material you already have, but in addition, it allows you to make excellent use and save a lot of money. In general, the thinner the wood, the more expensive it is, because the process of resawing it in the mill actually wastes some wood, as you can clearly see here, and so thinner pieces of wood tend to be more expensive per linear foot or even for board foot. Here you can also see how much stress there was in that piece of wood. You saw it bowing outside quite a lot, but luckily, because this is a small piece, we don't have to worry too much about it. The stress is simply relieved and we just move forward. You have to do this a couple of times, but because in general when you resaw something, you end up with at least 2 times the material. Sometimes I've resawn something and got 3 times the material. It's a very economical and very direct way of saving material and money. So if you have a table saw or a band saw, resawing is a great way to do your projects. Some people love the bandsaw for resawing, but you require a very good and a bandsaw that can take the width that you need. My bandsaw does not have the capacity, so it is the table saw I always use to resaw. Now we are.
So now that we have ripped all of the boards and gotten the thickness that we wanted, now we're going to square off one end of these and then cut the length to, or the width. It's the length of the board, but will be the width of the project, which is going to be 18 inches, but we want to make sure they're all square and straight here at the end. And here we are at the chop saw to do that. Looks like nice clean cuts.
Do you need to square those two or not?
So we've squared off all the boards. We're here at the saw getting ready to cut the first 18, and we're just lining that up with the mark on the measuring tape. And then we'll probably use these as the story stick for the others, right? Right. So again, we're using the one board that was at 18 cut. Now we've lined it up. I'm going to bring down the saw, and it will cut it at exactly the same length. to the correct size, and we'll start laying them out.
Out that every time we need a little bit of better perfection than we have, like precision, I guess is the right term, we always go to the sled we made, right? It always gives us very predictable, perfect cuts. And again, you can see we have a very, very small variance here. For most projects, it wouldn't even be a big deal. For this project, we want it perfect. So here we are again on the sled, making it perfect.
And because this is zero clearance, you just line it up with the edge of your cut here. Line up your line with the edge of the cut, and then the blade's going to come right along and square that up.
Okay, once again, we are here in our table saw, and we're going to make another rib cut. This is not technically a rib sawn. There is a very fine difference now between a rib sawn and a rib cut because of the size of this board, right? But we're going to call that a rib cut because we need two pieces similar to this out of this, right? Makes total sense.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. A rib cut reduces the width of the board, or when you resaw a board, you're actually changing its thickness. While the two terms are very similar, this cut here is actually a rib cut because we are going through the long side of the board. When you go through the long side of the board, that is a rib cut. And if you resaw something, you have much greater thickness. In other words, you have height in the board as well. But they are very similar cuts, often getting confused, especially by new woodworkers. So now you're looking at the back of the piece, and we're going to use two pieces of wood to create the strength, right, to keep the boards together. And that's what we're doing now. And possibly put another piece so we have a place to hang it. This is not necessarily you can put like a piece of string or something to hang it. That is not a critical component.
Right. But this is just kind of a dry fit, so we see what we're looking at and where we want to mark the pieces to cut.
Correct. So we're using wood glue for the first line of
Hot glue.
Hot glue.
Hot glue. Hot glue
Use
is
hot
hot,
glue.
man. Hot glue is hot, man.
And this is our first assembly part. Then we're going to use some very small pin nails to provide a little more strength to it, right?
And so what we did first was align it so that they're spaced evenly on either side. Scribe the line down here to help us line it back up. And just did the same thing that you just saw us do. Put the glue on that, flip it back over because these are spaced ever so slightly, and when you're dragging it down you could move that. And then we did either top or bottom so that it could be square. We used this to help us do that. And then the final piece goes right in, and it is obviously square because it's lined up.
I want to make sure we're not going through.
Okay, so again, just 3/4 inch pin nails here to help hold things together. The glue is a good start and helps hold things in place. This is just going to ensure that the pieces do stay in place.
Yeah,
So again, we're just going down the line. You can see these pinholes from the pin nails.
you can barely see them.
Yeah, you can barely see them, but again, this is the back of the piece, so you really won't even see it because it'll be hanging on the wall, just demonstrating how tiny these are. And again,
And really, if you finish it, it's totally invisible.
right. And two per board is more than enough. Okay, a little bit of light sanding here just to smooth the edges. And you can see that we have a very nice platform that has been built.
And of course, a little bit of sanding. If you have followed our channel for a long period of time, you know I'm not a big fan of sanding. In general, I prefer rougher pieces that are more rustic, and to me they just speak volumes. They really yell homemade, they really make DIY, just like the look. However, this is in essence a canvas that we're going to draw on, and it is very important that it's smooth. In this instance, Sanding is absolutely necessary and you cannot do too much of it. So Mrs. DIY has moved outside in her Fresca studio, right?
Yeah.
And we have started, that is the bottom layer, or the, what is called, the under layer,
Yeah, it's the background.
the foreground, the foreground of the background. So the painting process has started. And this is becoming the project of a million rib cuts, right?
Yep.
Another rib cut, because we're working with scrap. If you were using material that was straightforward, you wouldn't have to do all those rib cuts, right? In essence, we're going to make this to be a 2x2. We try to emulate this dimension.
It's a 1x1.
A 1 by
a
1.
1 inch square, yeah.
So don't listen to what I say, just do it.
This is what you do.
The key to successfully ripping a board on the table saw is to put pressure in front of the blade, never on the blade itself. That can become very, very dangerous, and have a very steady feed. As you can see here, feeding it steadily. Avoid getting your hands very close to the blade. I waited a little too long here, but in any case, keep as steady feed as you want, and steady pressure is the key to have an absolutely perfect rib cut. And the non-artistic part of this, the woodworking is almost over. We're just going to make a frame, and then Elpida and Mrs. DIY will do the rest. In essence, we're making a square frame using 1x1 material. So your first cut should be 45, right?
Mm-hmm. And so we have this, which is what is this called?
The miter gauge.
The miter gauge. We have the miter gauge set to the 45 to make it really easy, make a very nice clean cut on the table saw.
And we've already made 3 pieces.
Right.
We're going to now cut the last.
Right. So we have the 4 pieces for this frame, all laid out in a dry fit. We've got the miter corners matched up as well as they possibly can be. And we're going to use glue, the quick and thick glue. Again, not sponsored, but we do like the Titebond glue, and some brad nails to hold these joints together.
So here we are, our frame is ready. And I don't know what the plan next. Are we painting it? Are we doing the art?
I don't know. I think we got to check with Mrs. DIY and ask what her vision
Okay.
is. But the frame came together really nicely. 2 staples into each joint, along with that thick and quick glue. And very nice joints, gonna stay together.
So for our second artist, we are going to just use a little bit of stain. You can also paint it, right, Mrs. DIY?
Yeah, you absolutely can, or you could leave it natural.
Right. So this is a matter of personal taste. So you do it any way you desire.
You do you.
I don't like that expression.
Okay, well.
But you make it look any way you want. That's part of the fun of DIY, right?
Yep. Customizing.
So we've got the back part of this done, and this is an ombre sort of paint job with the total 2 colors of blue and teal blended together. The intent is to now put a mandala stencil here with, we're going to use a white paint to make it really pop out. And just working on the placement now, and we'll come back when we are ready to get started with that. Okay, so we have our stencil placed, and we're using some painter's tape to help hold it in place, which will not damage the finish here, but it will keep this in place. We do have ours placed just slightly off the edge just to make it look like it's kind of sliding off. And I'm going to use some white paint here. And as you can see, you want to do what's called stippling, which is kind of really finely putting the brush down and tapping it in, but you're trying not to get it underneath the stencil so that your lines are very, very clean. So we'll keep doing that, and we'll come back and show you when that one is finished. So we're making some progress on this. You can see the stencil in there behind the paint and how little bit we still need to go.
And
It
I
is-
put like a teaspoon of paint, and I'm just about done, but using it. But I'm 2/3 of the way finished with this, so it's very light.
Right,
coat.
right. You're not going to use a ton of paint. I'll get in closer. You can kind of see that color coming through behind the white. And so that will be a personal preference as to whether you want to do a second coat to really make the white stand out, or if you like that color coming from behind.
It's also a matter of how kind of how rustic you want it to look.
True.
Because if you have a little bit of the other paint peeking through, so it's not a perfect mandala, that's okay too. It just depends on what you like.
And it is very, very toasty here today with zero breeze coming through on the property. So we're quite warm out here in the sunshine. That being said, it's not raining, it's not freezing.
It's also not 100 degrees.
It's not, but it is toasty today. Okay, making some progress here. The original mandala is now drying and the stencil is in place. And we had another piece of stencil here that has a little bit of a mandala, kind of a stylized,
Lotus flower.
yeah. There was a term I was going for, but I can't remember it right now. And we're just putting that into the corner. And then deciding if any other design is going to go onto this project. Sometimes less is more, and you can go a little overboard, so just thinking about that.
You know how it is.
Yeah, so we are sparing no expense to use this nice little stick that we found to make the dots in here. And we're just being selective about which piece of the stencil we want to use. And we're using the little stick so that it's a little more precise. You could use the really fine end of another paintbrush, a pencil, just something so that you're not getting into the other pieces of the stencil. And we're going to do that and just have this line go all the way down.
So we've got our frame here, and this is on the back side of the frame. And what we're planning to do is to use this ring, this little metal ring. You can use a bigger size, smaller size, whatever you want, but you'll see what we're going to do when we add our twine. We're going to make a very rustic, kind of natural art piece. And you could put your ring in the middle if you wanted it completely symmetrical all the way around. I'm thinking that we're going to have it a little bit higher so that it's a little asymmetrical, and it just gives a little more interest to this.
Okay.
So we're going to use this twine, and we're going to make a loop around the ring to hold that taut in place. And then we're going to use the two strands that come off of that ring, and we're going to attach it to the frame. And we're going to do it in kind of a sunburst pattern all the way around. All right, so the first thing to do
Is measure and cut.
we're going to measure approximately where we need it to be, and we're going to cut this piece.
Okay. So you can see where we're starting to come together with this, in that we're measuring, looping, making sure they're cut to length, and then once we get those all around the loop, we will then start putting them into place with the hot glue. Okay, we've got a really nice spaghetti mess going on, but it's going to come out. So quite a few on there to make sure that the ring is fully covered, and you're not going to see that. It just looks really nice with the twine on it. And then right now we're going to start attaching these with the hot glue. And all we're going to do is stretch it out where we want it, put the glue here on the wooden frame, and hold it in place. And if we have some extra, obviously we can trim those off with the scissors. to make sure they're not hanging outside of the frame. And again, the goal is to try and spread them out so it looks like a sun ray, the burst of sun kind of going out like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we decided to use a little bit of painter's tape to help hold in place while we decide on the spacing for these. And then once we're ready to use the hot glue, we'll just pick up that thread, remove the tape, put the glue down, and then put the string back into place. But this is going to help us know where we need to adjust, make sure that all of our strings do reach to the frame. And we can make any adjustments before having, say, half of it glued down and finding out we need to adjust or something. So this is just part of the process in getting things spaced out correctly. Okay, so as we are finishing up putting our placement here, we noticed that one of the pieces of string is just a little bit short.
Short.
Rather than try to recut a whole piece, we also have a little extra on the other side. So we're going to come back to the ring and try to make an adjustment so that the extra length is on the piece that needs to come out, so that it's more long here and a little bit shorter there, and we think that'll make it work.
We'll see. If it doesn't, we will be cutting a new piece.
Which you can do too, but we're going to try to make use of the one that we have. See if making that adjustment brought it out. Is that going to work for
Still
us?
a little bit shy.
Okay, so we might still have to do it. But those are two things that you can think about doing if you have inadvertently cut your pieces a little too short. Okay, we have everything in a good placement now. Move things around a couple of times just to get the spacing into a way that we find pleasing. Just showing you that's what it's going to look like. Now what we're going to start doing is picking up one piece at a time, removing the tape, putting the glue down, and then pulling this as taut as we can without putting stress on the other side, just to make that they're straight, make sure that they are straight, and gluing them down. And once the glue down has dried, then we'll come back and trim up all these extra lengths. And again, with hot glue, it's very hot, so please be careful in touching it. But also it dries and holds very quickly, so it's usually 10 seconds or so. And you can see that line is nice and straight and taut and goes back to the ring. And that's what we're going to do for the whole frame, and then we'll come back and show you the finished. Okay, so we have put down the glue on this one, and we want to show you something because the glue is hot. We're just using a flathead screwdriver to help hold that into place. It doesn't glue to the screwdriver, or it shouldn't glue. It just helps hold that, that twine into place so that the glue can set up.
Yep.
Yay! Here we are, we have dots. Coming down from the mandala, and then there also is the other tribal stylized lotus flower. And this is what the project looks like. I think it's really cool like that. You like it? Mm-hmm. Okay, now all the glue has set. That hot glue has set, so we are trimming off the edges here. So all the glue has set. We're trimming off the extra so they don't show around the frame. Use something as sharp as you can, and obviously be safe. Okay, so all of the extra has been trimmed away. I'm going to lift this up so you can see what this looks like. But it's really nice. It'll pop out when you get it behind a wall, especially if you have any kind of a nice colored wall. But I think it has turned out real nice.
So these are our two finished projects. We use mostly scrap from actually everything scrap, right? Except of the stencil.
The stencil and the twine we needed to go and purchase, and the paint, but otherwise the wood and everything is scrap.
But still, how much money do you think we spent on those two pieces of art?
Oh, maybe less than $20.
Less than $20. Yeah, probably that's an accurate assessment.
Hmm.
What did we learn? Patience.
Yeah.
Be careful what you wish for because today is hot.
Yes.
Last weekend we were saying it's cold.
Well, yeah.
Welcome to North Carolina, right?
Yeah. Give it a few minutes.
Well, this was a proof of concept for us again.
Hmm.
We wanted to take things we had and see if we can make art out of them. And we think the results are actually pretty darn good, right?
They turn out as good as anything that you can go to the store and spend significantly more money on.
And we spend no money on it actually, so
Yeah.
we cannot be unhappy about that.
Right.
Well, friends, this is our episode for today. Let us know if you like episodes like that in the future. If you did like this episode, please give us a thumbs up. If you didn't hit the other button twice, share, like, subscribe. Let us know. Subscribe?
Yeah. Subscribe.
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 Let us know what else you might want to watch in future episodes of our channel. From Professor DIY, the noisemaker back there, Mrs. DIY and Elpida, happy summer to all, and let's build something together.